Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters English Breakfast podcast. I am your host, Kris, and once again, it's Sunday and the week has flown by. We've had lots of football and we're here to talk about it. English football, I should stress. I'm here with my regular cohort, Mr. Ross Bramble. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening, sir.
Alrighty, we've had a fairly good weekend between us again, haven't we? Arsenal and Saints, both unbeaten.
Yeah, I can't complain.
We're quite happy. We're mentioning that off the top because we're not going to go heavily into our games because there wasn't a lot to talk about. So just going to get that out of the way straight away. But we have much to discuss, and of course we have almost a bonus segment this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the events at the FA this week, aren't we? So we'll plough on and see where this weekend takes us. So let's backtrack to Saturday, shall we? And let's start with obviously with the Premier League and the first game of the Premier League weekend, which was actually on the Friday, I should say. Let's go back to the Friday. Everton won, Crystal Palace won. Just a brief one on this because it was one of those games that not a huge amount happened. Two Belgian strikers getting the goals, Lukaku for Everton and Benteke for Palace. I just simply really want to ask you, who's happier with the point from this? Because it sounds like an obvious question to ask you, but Everton, still on a decent run, still in the top five, and Palace a point away from home. So who do you think comes away happiest?
I think after the Bournemouth defeat last week, this was a bit of a banana skin for Everton, so they'll probably be happy with it. At home, you'd probably still expect them to have beaten Palace, but I still reckon they'd be relatively happy with that point. But it's a much bigger point for Palace. They've had not a bad start, but it's been a bit of a wobbly start. Going into a second international break now with a decent amount of points and a good little run of wins and draws now. So I think it's a better point for Palace, but I think. Like I said last week, you're going to get this for a couple of weeks now with Pardew. He's found his formula. He's got his team set up the way he wants them. There'll probably be a few more draws when he comes back and a couple more wins, and suddenly it'll be all on the Pardew bandwagon again. So good point for everyone. I love the fact the media are hyping this up as two Belgians scoring, as if anyone in the Belgium national team is going to give a toss that Lukaku and Benteke have done well, because they don't play with their kind of players. They just don't understand how to get the best out of those kind of players. So I don't read too much into the form of Lukaku and Benteke, because it never seems to work in the national side. But that was an interesting narrative from the week. But yeah, interesting enough game, but not much to really say aside from a good point for everyone, I think.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I don't think it wasn't, when you looked at Friday Night Football, it wasn't exactly a fixture that sort of illuminated Sky's coverage. I didn't think. I know, of course, they've got to be fair to all the teams, but it wasn't one that really gripped me, if I'm completely honest. But sorry to our Everton and Palace fans out there, but it's just one of those games, really. Right, let's move on to the Saturday game then. Now, there's a couple of games we want to sort of focus on individually here. We're going to scoot through some games, but I want to put the focus on Swansea-Liverpool first of all, because this potentially is going to be the end of the road for Francesco Guidolin. 2-1 victory for Liverpool. Swansea went in front in this game, but Liverpool came back to win it late with a penalty from good old James Milner. Points go to Liverpool, who we'll come on to in a second, but Swansea... Do you think Guidolin is getting a rough deal here? I mean, he did save them, he did keep them up, but I don't know about you. He felt like a bit of a lame duck at the start of the season, and has done ever since. So, do you think he's being a bit harshly treated if indeed he does get the chop?
If he goes on the back of the last three performances, I'd feel a little sorry for him. But I like I said last week, I've not been a fan of his since day one. I think he's a bit lightweight for the Premier League. I don't see him as a great motivator. His tactics haven't done brilliantly with Swansea. They've certainly played better over the past few years in the Premier League. I know he's lost players. I know they've chopped and changed that squad around. That it's not what it was a couple of years ago. But I personally would still expect someone to come in and do a halfway decent job with Swansea. And for me, it's just never really worked. And I never understood why he got the job full time in the first place. But to his credit, the way they performed against Chelsea, against who was it this week? Liverpool this week, and Man City last week, wasn't it? Those are three good performances, and they don't really deserve to have lost all those games. Or was it draw against Chelsea, actually? But to get 1 point out of 9 in those, I think is harsh on them. So I'd be disappointed if he loses it on the back of these three games. But at the same time, it would make sense because we've got an international break now. There's 2 weeks for someone to come in to change things however they want to. Personally, I'd still like to see him get another couple. I think he's earned that from the performances they've generated the last couple of games. But no, since day one, I've never really backed it. I've never really understood it, and I certainly think there were better choices out there. Maybe they just weren't available for Swansea at the time. But no, it wouldn't surprise me to see him go, but I would be a little disappointed for him after such good attempts in the last 3 games.
Never seemed like the right fit, did it? And I almost felt for it. He almost looked like a guy who was just, I don't know, sort of accepting of his fate in a weird kind of way. But yeah, such is life. Question for you though: if he is to go, who is the right person to fill the shoes? Because lots of names linked, but
yeah, no one leaps off the page at me.
Ryan Giggs seems to be the favourite. I don't know.
But
I'm not sure.
I don't think it's with Ryan Giggs. There's a lot expected of him because everyone thinks he's going to be the next Man United manager somewhere down the line, and you have to make sure your career goes very well. And it only takes one bad club to change that. I think Tim Sherwood was hailed at Tottenham, and then he got his first full-time job, and it didn't go very well at all, and now no one wants to hire him. So you've got to be careful with your first job. Gary Monk, questions were asked of him during his Swansea tenure, and he got the sack, but he still got a Leeds job because he did really well for Swansea when he first started out. So Ryan Giggs has to make sure that his first job is very good and it's of high quality. And I think Swansea are just in a bit of a state of flux at the moment. They don't strike me as a team that have enough about them to move back up into the top 10 right now. So that's what you'd be expecting of Ryan Giggs at the moment, or at least that's the sense you have about Ryan Giggs and his first managerial job. So I'd be hesitant if I was Giggs. Aside from him, I can't think of too many off the top of my head. Maybe Steve Bruce, but there's rumours, and we'll come to this later. There's rumours about him possibly taking over at Aston Villa in the Championship, maybe even the England job now that that's free. It's a tough market if they choose to now, but I'm sure there's someone out there, because I hadn't heard of Guidlin before he joined, so I'm sure there's another young manager out there, or even a more experienced manager out there that can play the quote-unquote Swansea way, but Giggs I'd be very hesitant of.
Yeah, there seems to be Giggs or Bob Bradley, the former USA coach, seems to be a favourite because they got American owners. Personally, I'd love to see Marcelo Bielsa.
He gets mooted every time that Swansea changes, doesn't
he? Yeah, he does. I mean, I think he had brief talks last year, but then he wanted to go to Marseille, and then he went to Lazio for a day and then quit, and he's just nuts. That's why I'd like him. He's just nuts. But yeah, we'll stay tuned on that one. Just looking at Liverpool, I cautiously I flip-flop with Klopp a lot, to use a saying I came up with earlier on. I'm never quite sure. I think he's a very good manager, putting aside my allegiance to the club I support, but I do think he's a very good manager. I do like his passion. I admire his honesty. I thought he spoke very well on Sky this weekend in the UK. He was on Sky over here, the TV channel, and I thought he spoke very well. And I do like his character. I'm just not convinced that he is, everything that people say, that he's the sort of finished item. I don't think he is. But that said, putting that aside, he does seem to be getting a tune out of this Liverpool side. And although I think they will always concede goals, they are starting to look like a side without European football that could potentially challenge the top 4, if not a title challenge all the way. So what do you make of them, and how far do you think they can go this season?
Oh, they could finish in the Champions League spaces. I don't doubt that. They are very enterprising. They are very dynamic. I think you saw the same thing with Dortmund and their front four. Very, very dynamic, and it was always difficult to contain them. And especially in a league like the Premier League, which I do like the Premier League, but the quality of defending in this division isn't the best. So if you can get some pace and direction and dynamism, you can sweep teams away. And that's what they rely on. The issue is that they also fall foul of what half the other teams in this division fall foul of, which is a poor backline. And then you get the 4-3s and the 6-5s and whatever else he's going to end up with. So they are great to watch. But if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd always be on the edge of my seat unless I was 4-0 in the league. And even then, I'd be a little bit cautious if one went in, So they're definitely Champions League contenders, but I wouldn't put them in the title just yet, because I still think they're just a bit too shaky. But there's nothing stopping them doing it in a season or two. I think under Klopp, they'll at least challenge for it. They'll at least be in the conversation right up to the last few weeks, at least once. but I don't think this year's their year. One thing I will say is that I think, if I'm right in saying, the record for the amount of penalties given to one team in one season was 13. Would not surprise me to see Klopp's Liverpool have that broken at some point, because their front 3, 4, 5, whatever it is they end up playing with, so
Pure
quick,
pace.
so dynamic. They're going to get a lot of penalties. I think they've already got 2 or 3 this season, so would not surprise me to see a penalty record full.
I think it might be 4. I'm sure Milner's got he had 2 last game, didn't he? He's got 1 today, and I think he got 1 another game. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's a good shout. I think teams need to be a bit careful about how they make tackles in the box against a team like Liverpool. But good result for them nevertheless. And we'll skate quickly over Hull 0, Chelsea 2. I think we both agree that, Hull, as good as they started the season, I think we both agree they will struggle. Decent result for Chelsea. Willian and Diego Costa finding their form in this game and getting goals to win that game. Not a lot more to be said in that one. And also quickly, Watford 2, Bournemouth 2. Again, we're not scooting over teams because they're smaller teams. It's just that it was a really good game of football, in truth. Really good game of football. But just not a lot to talk about, in truth, other than the obvious, which are the goals for Deeney and Callum Wilson, which is always a bonus. And, of course, success. Everyone was waiting for it, and he got the goal for Watford. But I want to put the focus instead on Sunderland and West Ham. We'll start with Sunderland, who drew 1-1 with West Brom. In the context of things, is this a point gain for Sunderland, given the fact they were a goal down with 7 minutes to play?
Yeah, I think it's definitely points dropped for West Brom. Because as much as there's questions over how good a team they are, Sunderland is still a team they would have looked at and thought, right, we can beat this lot. Especially with some of the results they've had, you would expect them to be a bit more buoyant. So I think they'll be disappointed with the draw. But for Sunderland, it's about scrapping and clawing and getting any point you can. And they will have also looked at West Brom and thought, yeah, we could get something from this. But they were still always the underdogs in this one. They were always still, quote unquote, the weaker side. So anything they can get from it is a huge bonus. I still think the balance is a little bit off at the moment in that team. They have good players on paper. It's just not come together yet. I still think that Djilabodji and Kone is a great centre-back pairing, but it's just not worked so far. Kazri has been in and out of the side. I'd like to see him start more. Denier is playing as a wing-back for some reason. I think he's better at centre-back. So there's a bit of imbalance. I think Moyes is still fiddling around with things and trying to find the perfect combination. But yeah, I think relatively speaking, they'll be happy with that point. But it's getting to a point now where it doesn't matter if you get 1, you need to start getting 3. So hopefully they can start stabilising after the international break, as Moyes has a bit more time to sit down and think about it. But I'm still not convinced they've got enough about them just yet to stay up.
No, and especially at home points. These games are games they have to be looking to win. I think we said that on last week's show, and of course they haven't got the victory. So, yeah, worrying times. And speaking of worrying times, West Ham. I mean, they limped again, didn't they? They didn't look. They didn't exactly look. I don't even know what the phrase is really. Comfortable, relaxed, composed. I mean, pick any of the above. And they relied on a wonder goal to get the equaliser from Dimitri. Yeah, quite unquote.
Depends who you talk to, because I've already gotten stick from a friend for saying that he was helped tremendously by the sheer amount of defenders that got in each other's way.
Defending was terrible, wasn't it? It has to be said.
I was watching Callum Chambers run and follow Payet back, and I think it's George Friend literally stands in his way and stops him from following him as he would have liked. It's just silly how all these defenders are throwing themselves in front of Chambers as he's desperately trying to track back, but. I can't take too much away from the quality of the run, but when you ignore Payet and look at the players that are falling around like idiots, it's quite easy to see how he got through in the end.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, it's a good goal, but much like a certain goal that a certain Welshman scored against my team in 1999, which has long been remembered for his chest hair more than anything else, I still question our defending on the night, and I think it's a similar kind of goal. But that said, Payet getting the equaliser from Stuani with the opener from Middlesbrough, it's got to be a point game for Middlesbrough. You'd look at this and think, well, they'll be happy with a point in this game. But again, similar to Sunderland, West Ham surely had to be looking at this game thinking 3 points, and yet again they've come out with 1. So does this increase the pressure on Bilic, or is it sort of a stepping stone to better things?
I think it still increases the pressure because the thing is with that Payet goal is that it is still brilliant, and I'm not going to try and deny that. It's a fantastic run. It's a very good placement with the shot, but you're not going to get that every week. And aside from that, did they really do enough? You know, you got to question whether they really pushed the envelope, whether they really deserve to get a point out of that, whether Middlesbrough could have taken more if they'd been a bit more clinical. You know, you've got to weigh up all the factors in that match, and honestly, I'd probably say a draw was about the fair result, but you know, goals change games. You can only react to the situation, etc., etc. And when you're 1-0 down against Middlesbrough, I still didn't see enough about them. And the run, the goal is fantastic, but are you going to get that next week? Probably not. Are you going to get it the week after? Probably not. Maybe in 3 months' time you'll get another moment like that, but it doesn't happen often. So there's still problems for West Ham. They can take a lot of hope, I suppose, from that point, because it's not a defeat. That's one of the main things, stopping the rot. But you've got to take it on to the next game, and you've got to make sure that you do one better next time, and the performance improves. And if you do draw, you need to feel hard done by. It's not just the case of scrapping by and getting a point here and there. Not when you're West Ham, anyway. If you're Sunderland, that's a fantastic result, you know. But for West Ham, you need to be looking for more. You need to be looking for the performance. You need to be looking for confidence levels, and I just didn't see enough of it against Middlesbrough.
No, again, I'm with you, and I still think that stadium is just not. It's just not home yet, is it? You can tell that, and the longer these runs go on, you know, you can just tell by the fans' reaction that something is just not clicking there, and it needs to click. Definitely needs to click soon enough.
More fan violence after the game as well.
Was there really? I didn't
Yes.
see it. I was looking out for reports, but
West Ham fans getting into fight with Middlesbrough fans, and a few Middlesbrough fans hospitalised. So definitely not happy home just yet.
No, definitely not. Not happy home, not happy fans either. But
nevertheless, I also did have to laugh when their owners came out and said that decisions had gone against them so far this season. No more than Stoke or Sunderland, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's not start playing that card.
They are the king of excuses, those two, aren't they? Golden Sullivan, Jesus. I mean, yeah, be interested. Actually, we'll have to get I think it's Mark, our West Ham fan. Mark, if you're listening, do tweet us your thoughts on what's going on at your club. We'd be interested to know what you think. But that was the Saturday games then. Because of Europa League and whatnot, we had quite a lot of Sunday games. Shall we just cover our games very quickly first? Because I think our two were the least interesting of the two. 0-0 draw for Saints away to Leicester. Happy with a point?
Delighted with a point. We went away to West Ham last Sunday. We went away to Israel on Thursday. Then we went away to Leicester on Sunday. When I saw that fixture list... 2 weeks ago now, we were talking about it before we came on air, and I realised our fixture list was Palace, West Ham, and then Hapoel and Leicester, and I thought, oh God, we're going to get caught out by Leicester because they're going to be so quick and offer what I assumed would be a good night for them against Porto in the Champions League. I wasn't looking forward to it, and the only thing I wanted was to make sure we didn't lose, and we didn't. Very entertaining game for 0-0. You would have thought Leicester were the one that played on Thursday because Southampton looked very fresh. But Charlie Austin has tried to dink Kasper Schmeichel when he should have just driven it. He said on Twitter after that he thought the keeper was going down, so he tried to chip him, but it's a poor decision. If he changes his mind there, it goes in and it's 1-0 and we're much happier. Ranieri says that Southampton played better. Puel is disappointed with the draw. I'm delighted. You know, six in a row now, 6 undefeated, 6 clean sheets. Good turnaround, you know, after the early consternation over the new formation and the diamond and whatever else. So I'm more than happy. It's a great turnaround from where we were a couple of weeks ago. A little bit disappointing not to win that, but a point is as best as you can do after such a busy week.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at was it 6 games without conceding a goal?
6.
I mean, that is impressive.
Fraser Forster set our clean sheet record last season, I think.
Yeah,
and he's so close to breaking it now. I think it was 6.5 games he went, and we're already at 6. So.
And with all due respect to Burnley, away from home, coming down to St Mary's in 2 weeks' time, you'd think there's a good a chance as any to extend that run. So
I think, though, Inter Milan is the one where it could break.
Yes.
So that'll be the big test.
The way Inter are playing, asked John as well. Yeah, I don't think you'll have too much to worry about right now, but that's probably just jinxed it. But yeah, nonetheless, a good result. Good result for Saints away from home, as you say, a draw. Can't be sniffing at that. And Arsenal got a very late winner at the aforementioned Burnley. We think the goal has been given to Lauren Koscielny, who appeared to sort of handle it into the net, Maradona-esque. No, not quite as obvious. I think it was more of it hit him. But nevertheless, a win for Arsenal. Oxlade-Chamberlain, quite a key part to the goal as well. You don't want to use the cliche, but it is the sign of a team that is chasing a championship, isn't it? It is the quote unquote mark of a championship team, purely because this is what we know Manchester United have been famous for so many years, playing badly or not being at their full potential and then nicking a goal in, let's be honest, the spawniest of circumstances. So do you think this is maybe proof that Arsenal, after all the false dawns, maybe are starting to turn a corner? Or is it another just one result away from all the fans just going off on each other again?
Oh, it's always that. You could be 12 points clear at the top, and one result would turn your fan base around. I was happy to see Arsenal win until I looked at when they scored and then saw the goal. Because Burnley fans, I can tell you, it's not nice losing to a last-minute goal against Arsenal, is it? And then I saw it. Handball. I don't think it's handball. Offside, absolutely, it's offside. He's ahead of.
Can't deny it.
He's ahead of Oxlade-Chamberlain. If it hits Koscielny and it's gone down as his goal, why is he not offside? That I don't get. The handball, I understand, because he's raising his hands to block his face. He's trying to protect his face. That's a natural position as far as I'm concerned. And more to the point, it's far too close to him to do anything else with his hands. So the handball, I'm not on board with, but it's offside because he's well ahead of Oxlade-Chamberlain. So I don't understand why it was given, but Arsenal fans won't care. Personally, I'm gutted for Burnley. I thought they did very well. I caught the first half, and then I was away for dinner for the second. But the first half, they broke up Arsenal really well. They got stuck in. They made sure that life was as difficult as humanly possible for Arsenal. It was a good performance from a very solid, well-rounded championship team, as far as I'm concerned. It was the kind of result they needed to try and get and needed to try and dig out. Make it more about Arsenal being bad than Burnley being great and deserving the point. So I thought that Burnley would have been full credit for a point, but that's the way it goes. Like you say, it's a result that if Arsenal end up winning the title, which I don't think they will, but if they do, or even if they're in the race come in the last few weeks, these are the kind of results that you would look back on.
Yeah, it certainly will be. Actually, you can't blow teams away every week at the end of the day. You have to grind out results at times, and I'll take it. I'll have to be honest. I will take it however it comes. But
interesting to see when karma bites back, though, because the Southampton result, bit dodgy. The Burnley result, bit dodgy. Be interesting to see when it turns around.
I'll tell you, it'll be against Mourinho's United. That'll be when that's when it'll happen. You know that's when it'll happen. Counting down the days, or it'll be North London Derby. One of the two. It'll be a massive game.
At least it wasn't Chelsea.
Well, yeah, that's true. At least you got that obstacle out the way. But do yourself a favour. If you saw the first half, I wouldn't bother with the second half. Not much happened. Just look at the last 5 minutes. That'll do. Not a lot went on. But there were two other games on Sunday where quite a lot went on. We'll start with Manchester United playing Mark Hughes' Stoke. A 1-1 draw in this one, Ross. Did you... I'll be honest. When United went 1-0 up, through Anthony Martial's terrifically taken finish. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's a stunning goal, and one that I think his confidence desperately needed. And for a player who maybe didn't have a lot of confidence going into this game, he came on as a sub and absolutely smashed it home. It was a beautiful goal. And at that point, United were on top, still not exactly playing brilliantly. But then, wouldn't you know it? Of all things, a David De Gea mix-up, a bit of fumbling, and up pops the Welsh Pirlo in Joe Allen, and Stoke grab an unlikely point. So it's an obvious thing to say Stoke will be the happier of the two. But was this a result you could have foreseen coming? Because I'll be honest, I didn't.
On the performance, no, and pre-match, no. The thing about it is, though, that we talked about this last week when they put 4 past Leicester, and I said you've got to be careful because 3 of those were from set pieces. Let's not start over-egging the pudding on Man United. And then a week later they get a very scrappy 1-1 draw with Stoke. Now, I know full well that Man United deserve to win that by 3 or 4. They had very good chances, much better than Stoke did. Played some good stuff, but they just couldn't find the finish. But again, we talked about it last week. 3 set pieces in one game to win 4-1 is fantastic, but you're not going to do that every week. You've got to make sure you put your chances away. And United again have been sold short because they just couldn't find the back of the net. So it's disappointing that De Gea has spilled that ball, because I don't think Stoke did enough to draw that game. But at the same time, invaluable point for them, and it's another lesson for Man United. You've got to start putting the ball in the back of the net, and the balance still seems a little bit off. I still don't know if Mourinho's got it right yet. Ibrahimovic has kind of got a bit quieter now. He went through that fantastic goal-scoring run at the start. Rooney being out of the team, I think, helps balance it out a little with Mata in the hole, but it's still work in progress. So it's a disappointing one for Man United, and I am disappointed for them because they really should have won it. But at the same time, like I said last week, 3 corners, that's great, but can you do it every week? No, you need to make sure you score, and they didn't do it, and they got punished.
Yeah, well summed up. I agree with you, and a good result for Mark Hughes and for Stoke, definitely. I mean, that's a point they wouldn't have anticipated, and decent for them, and a good finish from Joe Allen actually as well. It was a difficult ball to hit from the angle he was at. Could easily have turned it over the bar. So good finish and a good point for Stoke. Now the other game earlier on in the day has proven Manchester City can be got at and they can be beaten, because they were beaten by 2-0 by Tottenham, and it was a pretty thoroughly deserved performance and victory for Spurs, has to be said. And putting biases aside, they were impressive. And I think overall, I wonder how Pep Guardiola will judge this one, because frankly they were taken apart. I don't know how much of this game you saw. Did you see the whole thing, or just highlights? I
didn't, because it was on at the same time as Southampton Leicester, so I missed it.
Of course.
I would have loved to have seen it, by the way, because I know I've got a lot of questions past couple of weeks about my comments over Man City, but this week I've loved watching Man City. How brilliant has this week been for Man City? The 3-1 over Swansea last week, they didn't deserve 3-1. Swansea gave them a hell of a game. 3-3 with Celtic, fantastic game to watch. And now 2-0 lost to Tottenham. I would have loved to have seen it, because I like Pochettino, I like his team. I hope that Tottenham can go on and do good things. Sorry, Kris, but I do. And they did great against Man City. I would have loved to have seen it. But if this keeps up, then fantastic. Maybe it was just them trying to settle into Pep's new style that put me off, and them keeping the ball was them trying to learn his tactics, whatever else. But yeah, this has been a great week for me in Man City, but not such a great week for Man City themselves. So yeah, from what I hear, Tottenham were with a class above, and I would have loved to have seen it. But there you go. It's the curse of being a Southampton fan. I was too busy watching a 0-0.
Well, it's well worth watching the highlights if you get a chance. And as I say, Spurs were impressive. Absolutely, they are the only unbeaten side left in the Premier League now. In fact, so they were good. And Pochettino, I think I think he had a good record, didn't he, against Pep when he was at Espanyol?
He got his first win over. He got his first managerial win for Espanyol over Pep Guardiola's Barcelona.
There you go. So he obviously knows the blueprint. And I felt City, judging by the game when I saw it, I thought City were outthought a lot of the time. Obviously, the own goal didn't help. I thought some of their players were poor. They never really got proper service to Sergio Aguero, and they didn't have Miss Kevin De Bruyne playing between those lines. David Silva was quietly effective, but yeah, they really did struggle without De Bruyne running between the lines in this game, and I think ultimately that is really what cost them the opportunity to get back in the game. But own goal from Kolarov, and the second goal. Crikey, I've slipped my mind completely. Who scored it? I'm going to have to. Dele Alli, of course it was. Yes.
As well, wasn't it?
Fantastic pass from Heung-min Son. Really was a fantastic pass, and something you won't maybe not have seen yet, although you might have seen it on Twitter. There was an incident in this game where Spurs were awarded a penalty, basically, for a pretty horrendous challenge from Fernandinho. I don't know who the designated penalty taker for Spurs is, but Eric Lamela goes to grab the ball and does so, and Heung-min Son clearly, visibly and caught on camera, is trying to get the ball off of him, and it's one of those Kevin Morales incidents with Everton a few years ago, taking the ball off each other at a penalty spot. Yeah, I'm sure. I think it's.
I'm getting flashes of Tadic and Austin from a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly that. That's exactly what it was like. Exactly what it was like, and they were fighting over the ball. Anyway, eventually, Human-Son is taken away from the penalty incident, and Eric Lamela steps up and duly misses the penalty. So it was highlighted on Sky by Jamie Redknapp, and I thought it was an interesting thing to see, because it maybe just says that maybe not everything is crystal clear in the Spurs camp, and yeah, granted, it's a work in progress. It's going to take time, but. It's just one of those things you don't want to see, isn't it? Just one of those things you don't want to see. But nevertheless, a good result for Spurs. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you about Liverpool. How far can Spurs go? Again, they have Champions League to think about for the time being. Are they a title pushing side for you? Can they repeat what they did last year?
Yeah, I think they can. Pochettino is one of my favourite managers in the league. Completely over the way he left us. And I'm now back on his bandwagon because I think he's fantastic. He did fantastic for us, and what he's done with Tottenham. If you think of the mess that squad was in when he first went in there, and how quickly he chopped it, changed it, said you're staying, you're going, made clear what he wanted. I remember when he first went in there, and everyone was watching Adebayor try and use the Pochettino press, and we were all saying, he'll be gone by Christmas, it's not working, blah blah, and he just cut him out like a tumour, put in the youth players. And then brought in the players he wanted in January and in the summer. And he's built a great squad. I think it's one of the most well-rounded squads in the division. It's fantastic to watch. I think Pochettino's style is brilliant, especially when they've got the lungs and the legs to make it work. And apparently Tottenham have got it so far. They've had a few wobbles, a few performances where you've questioned it, but here they are, 7 games in, haven't lost. Did fantastic last season until the back end when the title fell through. I think they're going to be up there for as long as Pochettino's there. So I like the look of them. I think they're a fantastic team to watch. I hope they can have some success. I know I'm going to get bullied now by you and the rest of the hipsters because you're all Arsenal fans, but I'm a big fan of Tottenham. I'm a big fan of Pochettino and the direction they're going in. Can they win it this year? I don't think so. I think Man City is still in pole position. But if City have more wobbles like this, if this one carries on, if Pep can't address the problems with his style, blah blah, then Tottenham, I think, are one of the teams most well placed to do it because they've got this stability now, much like Arsenal have. They've got this manager in place, they've got the performances in place, they've got the structure and the shape and the players in the squad. If they can just keep that going season after season, there's nothing stopping this team.
No, I can't disagree with you. I can't disagree as much as I'd like to. It's as host of this illustrious show, I have to be impartial, and I shall continue to be impartial. Let's move on.
That was coming.
No, full credit where credit's due. Spurs were fully deserving of the victory today, and as you say, it'll be interesting to see how long they can take this run on for, and whether I like them or not. Pochettino is a very impressive figure and indeed manager. So yeah, interesting. Okay, right then. So that was the Premier League weekend. We now have. Another interlull. So, we should just say at this point then, during the interlull, there will be no English breakfast because we have nothing to talk about. However, we decided to do a little interview, haven't we, Ross? We're going to just sit down and have a little chat about the Championship and various bits and bobs of the Football League to start the season. So we're not sure 100% when we're going to do this, but it'll be during the international break. We're going to record it. We may have a guest, possibly, depending if I can make schedules work. But it'll be myself and Ross just talking about the EFL. So yeah, I think we're looking forward to that, Ross, aren't we?
Oh yeah, the Championship's 11 games old now, and I'm already a huge fan of this year's performances from a lot of the teams, and the way the table is shaping up is absolutely incredible. So yeah, it's going to be good fun to start breaking down some of these teams and the starts they've made.
Good times. And still to date, it is our most listened to show. So we must be doing something right for you Championship fans. So if there's anything that you want covered or you want answered, then please do let us know before we record. So it'll probably be at some point next midweek. So get your questions into us at the FH Podcast. We'll do our best to answer them if you have any. I know we have good old Jake, who's probably listening, Jake Bayliss. He'll be interested by that. He's a Villa fan. And he has just written his first blog for us. And thank you, Jake. This is official acknowledgement excuse me, that I do have your blog, and we are working to get it edited, and we'll hopefully have it up this week for you as well. So thank you again, Jake. Right. Before we touch on the Championship and the EFL, Ross, it would be remiss of us on the eve of an international break once again to not discuss the events of England, Team England, whatever you want to call them this week. Fair to say it's been quite a busy week. For anyone living under a rock, or coming down from space, or just somebody who may not have heard this in general, do you want to loosely explain what happened and the events that led up to Sam Allardyce being dismissed as England manager?
Daily Telegraph, which if you didn't know is a very high-end national newspaper in England, did a quote-unquote sting operation where they approached Sam Allardyce as a fake Far East firm looking to invest in players and clubs, and essentially got him to admit that not only could he help them get around FA transfer rules, but that he himself had dabbled in third-party ownership, and he was willing to take a £400,000, I think it was, payment to help this fake firm get a player through the door, make sales, blah. Obviously, it's against FA regulations. Third-party ownership is not allowed in England. I know it's available in some other countries, but the FA do not like it. It's also not great when you're in the job 67 days and you're already leaning on it to get yourself preferential treatment and working out shady undercover deals. So he has been dismissed, in my opinion, rightfully so. I'm sure we can have a long discussion on the ins and outs of it as football fans and as me personally as a journalist. But he got the sack, he got the boot, deservedly so in my opinion. He thinks that it was entrapment. I say you can lead a horse to water,
but you can't make it drink.
That's the one.
But you can drown it.
You can.
That's always my argument. I wanted to ask you just quickly on that statement, because he did come out and say, it's entrapment, I've been set up, and, you can't say anything freely, and who can you trust these days? Now, my argument is exactly like yours. When you take on the England manager's job, you have to be streetwise. You have to be whiter than white, and you have to know that no matter what you actually think or what you're doing, you have to know that you're covering yourself. And I thought it just smacked of just huge naivety and greed, I think is the word. And I've never met Sam Allardyce. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. I'm sure he speaks highly of me, but I just thought it was just the most ridiculous thing to do, and so stupid in his position of power, like you say, to take advantage of it so early. So you say you feel the same way. What would you say to his sort of view that it was entrapment? Do you think it holds any water at all?
No, of course it doesn't, because I could approach you or any of our listeners and say, yeah, I'm thinking of robbing a bank. I know how to get in, I know where the entrances are, I know how to turn the cameras off. You up for it? All you got to do is say no, because that's illegal. And you're in no bother. You should know, especially if you are manager of England, you should know that you cannot do that. You should know the rules on third-party ownership, especially when you've been a manager for God knows how long. You should know it's not right. You should know what you should and shouldn't do. You should know what your responsibility is as England manager. He's abusing a position of power, and that's the point of good journalism. We're called the Fourth Estate, have been for 200 years now. It's because we, as journalists, are the gap between the people and the people in power. We have to shine light on people abusing their power, and Sam Allardyce was 67 days into the job. I don't care if he thinks he was tricked into it. He should have said no. If he'd said no, not a bother. Nothing would have happened. Nothing would have been done. Same with Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. He's the only one so far that's come out in the Telegraph sting that I have any way, shape or form some kind of sympathy for. Because all he was really guilty of is agreeing to do a talk in whichever country it was for £55,000, which is an obscene amount of money. But I'm not Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. I haven't done the same things he's done in the game. I'm not an up-and-coming young manager. I can't charge anything for £55,000. He can. Aside from Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, everyone else that's come out so far has done something wrong and has been caught abusing their power. Sam Allardyce, as England manager, as someone that has apparently coveted this job for years, should know better than that. And I don't really care what he thinks. It's damn good journalism, and they've caught him with the smoking gun, unfortunately.
Well said. I can't disagree with a word of that. I think you're absolutely bang on. And at the end of the day, in the world we live in, with social media, with camera phones, with just every access to set someone up, I just think he's just been so naive. And like you say, 67 days into the job. I mean,
For
at
me,
least
that was the big thing about it for me. It
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
even so much that he was getting around third-party ownership, blah, 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 blah. Because if you're in the business that long, I'm sure you'll find loopholes to do things. I understand that exists in every form of any kind of business. When you're in it long enough and you know people and they can do something for you, that's how it goes. The fact he's willing to do it 67 days into the job, and he's already willing to take a payment that is not even half the wage he earns of an average year as England manager, speaks volumes. You can't trust him. You can't trust him, because what happens in a month's time when someone approaches him to do something a lot worse than that? He's going to use it. Of course he is. We've already seen the proof of it here. That was the thing that pissed me off the most about it, and that was the thing that I think really cost him his job. The third-party ownership thing. Maybe you could get around it. Maybe you could make a statement. Maybe you could scold him, give him a leave or whatever. But the fact he was willing to abuse the position after 67 days speaks volumes.
I agree. And just before we wrap that question up, or that subject up, the early front runners, Ralf Rangnick, formerly of RB Leipzig, sort of has done the rounds as a German coach. He's been about a bit, very experienced. He's the lead foreign front runner. Arsene Wenger obviously has been talked about it. I don't think, well, in fact, I'm almost positive that won't be happening during the season, but maybe potentially if you left Gareth Southgate in until the end of the season, maybe that's an option. Gareth Southgate himself potentially is an option, even though he said he didn't want the job 6 months ago.
I think his squad has counted him out after tonight.
We will touch on that. And Steve Bruce, who you've already mentioned as well, who was apparently a front runner. And for me, if the FA were that serious about how, they made this big deal about how seriously they took Bruce's application and how keen they were on him, and then went for Allardyce. So for me, surely then you just go for Bruce, because that's what you said you were going to do. So of those four, any of those sort of your particular choice, or if not, then who would you be going for?
Alan Pardew. No, I would be going for Ralph personally. I can't say his second name. Rangnick. Ralph
Rangnick. Yes, very good. Very good.
I would go for Double R on a flash, because he sounds like a coach that I think we need a foreign manager right now. Considering the storm we've had this week, I think what we need is someone completely separate from all the emotional issues with England to come in and say, I don't care what the Telegraph are doing. I don't care what other managers are doing. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a good job for England. I think that's what we need right now. Is just a bit of separation between the FA and the England squad, because I think they're starting to blend far too much, because the FA got this grand plan of us challenging for the World Cup in 2022 and challenging for the next Euros and blah, 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 blah. I think there's a bit of a blend occurring at the moment, and I look at the squads and I wonder how many of those are the manager picking and how many of those is the FA saying we'd like to see him develop, blah, blah, blah. Double R has a very good record of bringing through youth players. I think he turned down Jamie Vardy because he was 27 years old. He had a policy of only signing 24 and younger. So I'd like to see him come in. I'd like to see what he can do with some of the youngsters we've now got coming through. I haven't seen his style. I've spoken to Drew about him, and I've seen other people talk about him. He sounds like the kind of manager that would come in and shake us up, do something different with us, and make us a bit more dynamic. So I'm all for something pragmatic, simple, boring, but effective, and that's what Double R sounds like.
Sounds good to me. And Drew has indeed written a very good piece for Outside of the Boot, I think I'm right in saying, which I think it's been published. I'm not sure. He sent it to me and I must give it a read. I haven't had time yet, but I'm reliably informed he's taken quite a lot of time to put together a very good piece. So if you go to outsidetheboot.com, I think you are right. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think that's right.
.com. I can go and check. Yes, it is.
Or there you go, super. So outsidetheboot.com, if it's not up already, it soon will be. Drew's piece on Ralf Rangnick, so have a look. And just for anyone who doesn't know about him, former manager of VfB Stuttgart, also Stuttgart first team, Hannover 96, Schalke 04, Hoffenheim, and RB Salzburg. He was a sporting director, as indeed he was at RB Leipzig, and then he actually managed RB Leipzig for a bit as well. So, yeah, safe pair of hands, and hey, if you can't beat the Germans, employ one. Seems to be the way forward. I'm very surprised Jurgen Klinsmann hasn't been linked with this job yet.
Give it time.
I have to be honest. Yeah, give it time.
I have to say, I'm kind of sceptical on Bruce. I think there's a reason that he's not been approached yet.
I think you're right.
I wonder if he's going to be implicated in this. I mean, I'm not going to slate him just yet, because we don't know. No. But I do wonder, because like you say, they spoke very highly of him after his interview. So I just wonder if there's something. maybe coming out this week for them not to immediately have gone, Steve, you're out of a job now. The stars seem to have aligned for Steve Bruce, so I'm just a little cautious of him at the moment.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. I think there's a lot more to come out of this, which we haven't heard yet. So, yeah, could be one to keep an eye on. Anyway, before we leave England behind, they have announced a squad. What is the squad? There's one notable. There's one notable surprise inclusion. What do you reckon?
Well, is it Michael Antonio? Is it Theo Walcott?
No.
Is it Marcus Rash? No, it's Glenn Johnson.
No. Yes.
What is he doing in that squad? I was thinking about this the other day when Southgate got the quote unquote job, because he's only there part time. If you're Gareth Southgate, you've been managing the under-21s for X amount of years now. You've gone and watched Championship games and lower-end Premier League games. You're going to have seen Troy Deeney more than Sam Allardyce or Roy Hodgson would have gone to specifically look at those players. You're going to have seen Michael Keane. You're going to have seen Sam Byram. You're going to have seen John Joe Shelvey. I thought, hey, why not have a free swing? Pick whoever you want. Bring up some of the youth players that you think are ready, because James Ward-Prowse has been there for what feels like a decade. So why not give him a run out against Malta, or is it Lithuania we've got after them? I can't think of who it is now, but
I think it is. Yeah, Malta, Lithuania. Yeah, I think so.
But it's just like, why not take a few risks? Why not bring in a couple of young players, see how they do? Because at the very least, you get them in and around the squad. If you don't want to use them in a World Cup qualifier, at least you get them bled in. And Gary Cahill has been very wobbly, so why not bring up Michael Keane? Right back is apparently now an issue. I don't know if Klein's injured or not. I can only assume he is, because frankly Klein would have to be dead for me to not bring him in over Glenn Johnson. So why not give Sam Byram a go? I know he got injured, but beforehand, why wasn't he in the conversation? Even Ward from Crystal Palace, why isn't he being brought in if that's the case? Noble, is he worth a shout? If Antonio can get in, can't Noble? Because Noble's been very good for the past 5 odd years now. Take a few risks. Pick the team you've always wanted to pick, and it seems like we've gone back in time. I don't know what Glenn Johnson's done, because Stoke is second bottom. It's not like he's been brilliant this season so far. So, very, very strange squad. I was hoping to see a few risks. I know that's me being a bit of an idiot and just kind of hoping blindly, but I would have liked to have seen Gareth Southgate bring up a few more under-21 players, and it seems like the only one he's really brought through is Lingard and Rashford. And even then, I think Allardyce would have done that. I think even Roy Hodgson would have done it. So the only one is Glenn Johnson. How is he getting in there? There's better right-backs right now. Like I say, Ward from Crystal Palace has been a blinder since he's been in the Premier League. Why wasn't he even in the conversation?
Again, it's just bizarre, isn't it? Just I looked at that squad and that was the one that just jumped off the page. It's like, what? Okay, fair enough. Now we've said that, of course, I'm sure he'll bag a hat-trick in Malta. Still, maybe that's the reason he's in there, because we don't really need a right-back. I don't know. Anyway, that's England talk done for another couple of weeks or months, maybe. I don't know. Let's move on then to the Championship and the EFL. And, Ross, it's time for your weekly roundup of what's been going on in the lower leagues. So, where do you want to start this week? You could, if you wanted to, you could touch on the midweek action as well, by all means, but I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, we are going to start with League 2, because I always like finishing strong with the Championship, because, it's the best league in the world, quote unquote. League 2, some really, really cool stuff happened in League 2 this week. I think the major one was the Cambridge United game. Now, Cambridge won 2-1 at home to Accrington Stanley. They had 2 penalties, Cambridge. They saved 2 penalties in the last few minutes of stoppage time. Incredible piece of goalkeeping from Will Norris, who I even wrote down his name because he deserves to be called out. 2 penalty saves in stoppage time to guarantee a 2-1 win for Cambridge. Fantastic performance from him. But also a very big set of points for Cambridge against Accrington Stanley, who of course did so well last season to get into the playoffs. Hartlepool went away to Grimsby Town. Now, Grimsby have been brilliant since they came back up. Scrolling quickly through the table, they're up to 9th at the moment. And if you're a Grimsby Town fan, please tell me you expected to be in 9th, because I never did. Fantastic performance from them so far this season. But they hosted Hartlepool United, who have been a bit hit and miss so far this season. And Hartlepool ended up winning 3-0. Fantastic result for Hartlepool. One of the biggest results of the weekend. Exeter City is a club I have a bit of a soft spot for because of Paul Tisdale and how long he's been there and what a great job he's done with them. But Exeter really, really wobbly at the moment, starting to sink quite quickly. Now down into the relegation zone, where I don't expect them to be there for very long. But that's still a very worrying side from a club that is normally quite steady under Tisdale at the bottom end of League One, top end of League Two. So bit of a nervous time for Exeter to be that low in the table. Aside from that, we had a couple of postponements. I think there's only 2 games that were called off in the Football League this week. Was Newport against Stevenage, Notts County versus Morecambe. I think they're the first 2 to be called off by the weather this season, so a bit of a shame for them. Newport County, of course, have lost their manager this week. So have Leyton Orient. They got rid of I can't think of his name now. It's a long one. It begins with H, but I can't think of it. They sacked their manager on Monday, or quote unquote relieved him of his duty. And about 9:15 tonight, they announced their new manager by the name of Alberto Cavasin, formerly of Fiorentina, Frosinone, and Sampdoria. So
wow,
can't be that good considering he's now in Leyton Orient. But yeah, that's a very colourful career, and it's a relatively big name to drop into League Two. So impressive resume. Interesting to see what he can do in League Two because it's nothing like Serie A. But yeah, that's a big name appointment ultimately for Leyton Orient. They got a 0-0 draw against Barnet, but they have a lot of work to do to turn themselves around and get back into League One. But interesting to see how he does. So we move into League One. Now, last week, I think it was Chesterfield we brought up because they were the club that finally ended Northampton's undefeated run in the league, which I think stretched to around 34 games. Now, this week, Northampton hosted Bristol Rovers at home. The last time Northampton lost at home was in December. They lost against Portsmouth. So, against Bristol Rovers, who've been doing very, very impressively in League One so far, it was a bit of a banana skin after last week's hiccup. They were 2-2 up until about the 85th minute-ish. Then the referee got injured, and the assistant had to come on and take his whistle. The assistant then came on and sent off Zakuani for Northampton. Gave away a free kick, got himself sent off, and then that free kick ended up in a goal for Bristol Rovers and helped them win the game 3-2. And that is, like I say, Northampton's first defeat at home since December. So a bizarre way, I suppose, to lose that record. But you don't often hear about referees getting injured. Coventry also now without a manager. They had to say goodbye to Tony Mowbray this week. Coventry. They've had a very colourful career down in League One with stadium moves and sharing with Northampton and all the rest of it. Thankfully still in business. Tony Mowbray did a good job with them, keeping them steady during all the crises. But they're now 23rd, or at least they are 23rd now. That's because they picked up a good result over the weekend with a... where am I looking? 2-0 over Port Vale is what they got. Looking at midweek, they got 2-2 with Wimbledon, but that's not what we're interested in. 4 points this week. Fantastic turnaround. They're now off the bottom, but Tony Mowbray had left them at the bottom with no wins. Great credit to Tony Mowbray, though. This week of all weeks, all the things we're hearing about England managers and managers in the lower leagues, Tony Mowbray said that he didn't want to be a burden to Coventry and that they needed all the money they could get, so he thought it was better to lose his wage if he wasn't doing a good enough job for them and stepped aside. So great credit to Tony Mowbray, and hopefully Coventry can now start turning things around. Walsall got a very good 2-1 win over Millwall this week as well. Millwall's starting to hit a bit of a wobble. I still expect them to be in and around the playoff areas by the end of the season, but fantastic result for Walsall, who, as I said in the preview pod at the start of the year, lost, I think, their top 7 goal scorers over the window, but still doing relatively well. 3 wins now for Walsall. And the final result I wanted to pick out was Charlton, who they've been very hit and miss. They strike me as the Aston Villa of League One. 6 draws now for Charlton, but this weekend they lost 1-0 to Rochdale. They just can't seem to get it going. Very, very troubling times. Now the fans are starting to get very restless with Russell Slade. Like I keep saying, he's a very uninspiring manager, but I still think he's consistent. I still think he could get them out of that division, but certainly not clicking at the moment, and you wonder how much time he's going to get. So I'm going to move into the Championship now, and oh boy, it's been a good week in the Championship. If you took my advice last Sunday when I mentioned Newcastle Norwich for midweek, then no problem, you're welcome. What a game that was, 4-3 to Newcastle in the end. Norwich were 3-2 in the lead going into the 94th minute or something, and then Newcastle got 2 quick-fire goals in the 94th and 95th minute to win it 4-3. Incredible game, and one that will live long in the memory of Newcastle and Norwich fans. So after that midweek game, we ended up with Newcastle going away to Rotherham. We expected an absolute hammering from Newcastle because Rotherham have been awful this season. Kris and I both tipped them for relegation. They are bottom of the division, only 1 win and 7 defeats. So we thought it was going to be an absolute landslide, but Rotherham gave them one hell of a game. Newcastle managed to just about get the 1-0 win. If you haven't seen Atsu's goal for Newcastle, it's an absolute blinder. Looks like Atsu's finally getting a decent run of games, or at least a platform to get a decent run of games. Hopefully he can settle in a bit because he had that loan at Bournemouth. He's owned, of course, by Chelsea, where he's never going to be getting a kick. So nice to see him get a very, very impressive goal from Newcastle. Another story that came out of this weekend was Fulham. I know Kris tipped them for promotion this year, and at the start of the season, they managed to get a very impressive win over Newcastle on the first day. They went on a very nice run, and it seemed for a little while that Kris was going to be right, and then he wasn't. It's all kind of turned around. They started to sink down the table. They've managed to lose 2-1 to QPR, missed 2 penalties, including one off the post from Sonia Luko in the dying embers of that game. I can't think if it was normal time or added time now, but incredible story. But Fulham's really starting to wobble now. I remember Jukanovic saying after the Newcastle game that they were ready for Newcastle but not ready for the season, and it certainly turns out at the moment they were not ready for the season at all. Nottingham Forest still can't keep a clean sheet. Haven't kept a clean sheet in any competition so far this season, and it cost them again this week. If I can quickly find their result, they lost 2-1 to Bristol City. They took the lead, and then Tammy Abraham, of course it was Tammy Abraham getting the first goal, and then one of their former players, Jamie Patterson, who I've always been a big fan of, and I was very surprised to see Nottingham Forest let go, but he pops up with the winner for Bristol City, so another fantastic result for them. But Nottingham Forest really starting to wobble now. There's a lot of ill will to Montagnier and Fawaz, the owner, at the moment, for the Oliver Burke situation and not being able to reinvest the money. And like I say, no clean sheet in any competition so far this season. Not something you want in the Championship because goals fly in everywhere. As indeed they did at Cardiff. Cardiff, really good result last week. I remember pinpointing it last week for Lambert's 2 goals. They went away to Burton Albion this week, and I thought, hey, on the back of last week, you never know. And then Burton Albion beat them 2-0. So Cardiff, again, back in the relegation zone, really started to struggle once again. Huddersfield, still top of the division. They just keep going, 1-0 over Ipswich. Questions about whether Mick McCarthy's going to be there for much longer, because the other big story from the Championship this week was, of course, Aston Villa. We expect Roberto Di Matteo to be sacked within the next 24 hours, if you believe the papers anyway, after a very, very wobbly week. They lost this weekend to Preston. They only got a draw against Barnsley, I think, in midweek. It's just not been good enough. They're now down in 19th, 1 win in 11 games, 7 draws, 3 defeats. I know that Tony Shear said last week that the media were talking about the decision to sack Di Matteo as if it was already done and he didn't know about it. But you have to wonder now, because it's been a poor start, and when you invest £50 million in a Championship side, you expect better than 1 win in 11. So, concerning times for Aston Villa. Like I say, we expect Di Matteo to be sacked in the next 24 hours. Mick McCarthy has been linked with the job, as has Steve Bruce. Also been mention of David Wagner of Huddersfield Town, but I'm not sure he'd leave them just yet. Other big news from the Championship was Norwich. Like I say, they lost 4-3 in midweek to Newcastle. This weekend, they played against Wolverhampton Wanderers in the evening kickoff. If you watched it, I thought it was a relatively good game, but it was lit up entirely by one fantastic goal from Robbie Brady, which if you haven't seen, you can go to my timeline and see one of my retweets. It's an absolutely lovely curled effort into the top corner. Well worth the price of admission. Another big 3 points for Norwich, moves them back up to second. Keeps the top 5 teams very, very clustered and clumped together. It's fascinating to see this division take shape. So many surprises, so many teams at the wrong ends of the table and the right ends of the table that you just never expected. So really looking forward to have the chance to sit down with you next week, Kris, and have a talk about it, because this division already has been just absolutely fascinating.
Superb as usual. Thank you very much for your in-depth roundup. And yes, indeed, we will sit together and have a natter about it next week. And I think it will give us some time to properly drill down into some of the clubs individually and some of the top performers of those clubs. So yes, we will definitely look into that and have a good natter about that. So superb stuff. Okay, we won't pick out fixtures for next time because it's 2 weeks away, and by the time people listen to this, it'll be a blur, won't it? So we'll look ahead to those games probably during our next preview, and go from there. But super stuff. I suppose I will just ask you the one question with regards to the Championship. Have you changed your mind on any of your predictions to this
point? I change my mind every week. That's the fun bit about the Championship is that every week every position changes. Promotion, I still think Norwich and Newcastle as my top two. But playoffs is wide open right now. Sheffield Wednesday haven't really kicked into gear yet. They're still a little bit short. Wolves, you just feel like they're one good run away from blasting into the top six. Barnsley, Leeds are starting to turn a corner as well. Brighton is still in there. Bristol City are in there mainly because of Tammy Abraham, but if he can keep going, then why not? Birmingham have been very impressive, got new money coming in January, so who knows what they can do when they can start buying players. Yeah, my predictions change every week. The bottom three is very difficult to call because I think we both agreed that it would be Rotherham, Burton, and I can't think of who the last one was we were going to say now. Never mind.
I can't remember who I said. I will have to listen to this.
Barnsley was the one we said.
Yeah,
and Barnsley have blown it away. Burton have been very solid, and suddenly Derby are down there, Wigan are down there, Blackburn are down there, Cardiff are down there. So yeah changes every week. But yeah, I'm sure we can go more in depth about predictions next window, and then I'll change them the next time we do one. But yeah, fascinating league, absolutely fantastic this season.
Yeah, I agree. It is fun. It's fun to watch, and as we say on this podcast every week, if you don't enjoy the Championship or you haven't had the opportunity to enjoy the Championship, please do, and indeed the leagues below. There's plenty of local football you can get out there and see and enjoy, and yeah, we definitely recommend that. So, and as usual, if you've got any questions for us, then please do send them in. We'll do our best to answer them. Right. Before we go, Ross, we are just going to do a quick update. We've had a few people asking us about the fantasy football. We try and forget it, you and I, because we're terrible at it. But I know, but we'll probably mention this on the pod tomorrow as well, in case people don't get a chance to listen to this. But yes, currently, just to give you an update, the hashtag TFHP Invitational, Mardi under 21s, managed by Ali Ragab. He's currently top, 439 points. Wow. Superb. Just to our listeners to know, his team, De Gea, Walker, Evans, Cedric, Capoue, Antonio, Alexis Sanchez, Darren Fletcher, that is, Callum Wilson, Diego Costa, Lukaku, and his subs are Fraser Forster. You'll be happy with that, Ross. Or is it? No, it's not. I'm lying to you. It's actually Foster. I always get those two confused. Sorry. West Brom's Foster, Kevin De Bruyne, Luke Shaw, and Scott Dann. So he is top of the table. Beast Boys by Samuel, crikey, it's one for Danny here. Myrobstad, or Mibostad. Yes, I'm going to go with that. Sorry, Samuel. He's in second, 378 points. Wheezy FC, Martin Fricker, 376 points, close in third. Kris Oakey, PK Blinders, 374 points in fourth. Boom Boom Shakalaka, Carl O'Reilly is fifth. Kashawirlawa FC. Wow. Al Armin's team, he is in sixth. Pearson Athletic, Simon Hill in seventh. Michael Johansson Leckerund is eighth. Shakaresk, at Shakaresk, our friend on Twitter. The Royal Arsenal, his team, are ninth. And Haruna Makone, brilliant. Alex Makone, his team are 10th. Just so you know where the hipsters are, so you can laugh at us all. John Welsh is currently top of us lot. He's in 18th. Well done, John. Kelly, our researcher, is 20th with Canadian Bacon. Tom is 22nd. You can probably see what's happening here. Myself, 29th. 29th out of 39. So I'm having a shocker. And Ross, not much better. 36, my friend. We need to sort this out.
I'm only one Steve Mandanda hat-trick away from flying up that league. So.
Oh, me too. I mean, my team is a mess. I'm looking at it now, and it's an absolute pigsty of a team. I'm going to have to make some changes. Yeah, my two front men didn't fire this weekend either. So, yeah, not good. But hey, that's your fantasy football update. So sorry about that we haven't updated you before, but there you go. That is our update, and that's where things stand. Just before we leave you, we do also. I just want to. This is really interesting. I've been looking at our SoundCloud page, our new SoundCloud page. Do subscribe if you haven't already. It gives us the top cities, Ross, where we're downloaded throughout the world. Where do you think is our top ranking city for downloads? Do you think at the moment?
City. Jeez.
It's probably more obvious than you think.
I would take a punt at London.
It is. It is indeed London. 53 people in London. However, it was very interesting. When it goes down the list, Birmingham is second, so the two big cities. Third is Brooklyn, New York, which I love. That's just fantastic. Sun City, California is up there. Sydney, Australia. Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Durban, South Africa. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Orlando, Florida. Brampton, Canada. And there was another one that stood out here. Belleville, South Africa. Vienna in Austria is up there. And Madrid, Spain. So it's quite the eclectic mix of places. There's one in Sweden, one in Denmark, one in Arizona. I mean, Hyderabad in Pakistan, Mumbai in India, Helsinki in Finland. So we really are global, and it's quite humbling. So if you are one of those subscribers from overseas, we want to hear from you. Let us know. Let us know where you are and where you listen. And we have started to bring shout outs onto the podcast and give you guys and girls some recognition for being with us on this journey. So if you do listen and you're overseas, let us know where you are, and maybe the most bizarre places you've listened to us. They're always fun stories. So do send them in, and we'll try and dedicate some time to those. And thank you very much. And if you don't already, please do give us a subscription on SoundCloud, iTunes, or YouTube. And do check out our website as well. As I say, we've got the blog going up this week, hopefully from Kris. It is Kris Bayliss. I thought I'd change his name there. Kris Bayliss on Villa, and we got a few other blogs going up soon as well. So do keep an eye on that as well. And of course, the Hipsters' Choice. All right, okay, Ross. We'll leave it there then for this week. Thank you very much for your input as usual. Appreciate it.
Pleasure as ever.
We'll be back next week, as I say, to have a little natter about the Championship and plough our way through our thoughts. But until then, we have been the Football Hipsters. This has been the English Breakfast Podcast, and please do check in with us again. And we will return with an interview next week and right back for the English action when it resumes in 2 weeks' time. Enjoy your football, and we'll speak to you very soon.